Everyone argues about the same two bears. Ask which bear in America you should fear most, and you will hear the grizzly for its speed and its temper, or the polar bear for its size and the fact that it is the one bear that will hunt a person on purpose. Those are the two that fill the nightmares and the nature documentaries. And they are both, in their way, correct. They are also both wrong, because the most terrifying bear that ever stood on the ground you are standing on right now is not either of them. And it is not close. It stood 12 feet tall. It could look a grown man in the eye without rising onto its hind legs. It ranged from Alaska to Mexico, coast to coast, across land that is now farms and highways in the backyards of the United States. It watched the first human beings on this continent walk out of the north and into its country. And it has been dead for roughly 11,000 years. Its name is Arctodus simus, the giant short-faced bear. And for most of the Ice Age, it was the largest meat-eating land animal in North America. This is the story of what it actually was, which is stranger than the monster the documentaries have made of it. It is the story of the mistake almost everyone makes about it. A mistake that a lot of videos about this animal get badly wrong. And it ends with something that almost no one knows, which is that the blood of this 12-foot monster is still alive today, walking around in a bear you could go and see. That part is coming, and it is the part that will stay with you. There is a real chance this animal was pulled out of the ground somewhere near you, so tell me in the comments what state you are watching from, and I will tell you if the giant has turned up there. Hit the subscribe button if buried history is your kind of thing. Now to the bear. Start with the size, because the size is the thing you have to understand first, and the size is where the lies begin. Here is the truth, and it is enough. A large male Arctodus simus weighed somewhere between 800 and 1,000 kilograms. In pounds, that is roughly 1,700 to 2,200. The average adult ran around 1,500 to 1,700 pounds. The very largest individuals we have found push toward the upper end of that range and perhaps a little beyond. And that is where honest science stops, because that is what the bones actually say. You will see other numbers online. You will see this animal described as weighing 2 tons, 3 tons, and in one video that a lot of people watched, 35,000 pounds, which would make a single bear heavier than most tyrannosaurs, and one of the largest land mammals that has ever existed. That is not a bear. That is a typo that got repeated until people believed it. The real animal did not need the exaggeration, because the real animal at 1,700 pounds was already about the size of the very largest brown bears. And polar bears alive today, the ones that hit 1,500 pounds in a record year. Except Arctodus was not built like them. Where a modern bear is low and heavy, and close to the ground, Arctodus was tall, long in the leg, rangy. Standing on its hind legs, it reached 11 feet, but the number that should actually stop you is not the standing height. It is the shoulder height. On all fours, just walking, a big male stood over 5 feet at the shoulder. That means the bear did not have to rear up to look a human being in the eye. It could do that flat-footed, on all fours. The way it would look at you if you met it on a trail. Whatever you are picturing, raise your eyes, and then raise them again. Its skull was massive and deep, its jaws powerful, its eyes set wide and facing forward, and its teeth built for shearing. And it was everywhere. Fossils of this animal have been pulled out of the ground in more than 100 sites across North America, from Alaska down to central Mexico, from California to Virginia. The most complete skeleton ever found came out of a cave in Indiana. The largest known skull was dug up by a gold miner in the Yukon. And in 2008, a farmer in southwest Iowa doing dirt work on a flood control dam along a creek near the town of Atlantic turned up the bones of one in his own field. That is the thing to hold on to. This is not an animal from some far-off lost world. It is in the ground under the United States. It may be in the ground near you. Now the mistake. Because this is where most of the story goes wrong, and where the honest version gets more interesting than the myth. And this is the part those other videos get wrong. So if you want the real version instead of the recycled one, subscribe, because it only gets stranger from here. The picture you have in your head of this bear, the one from the documentaries and the drawings, is a monster predator. A fast, ferocious hunter, faster than a horse, running down bison and horses and anything else it wanted, across the open plains. The deadliest pursuit predator of the Ice Age. That image comes from a real scientist, a paleontologist named Bjorn Korten, who in the 1960s looked at the bear's long legs and its short, broad face and its shearing teeth, and concluded it must have been built like a giant cat, a running killer. And for decades, that was the story everyone told. The problem is that the bones do not agree. In 2010, a team of paleontologists led by Borja Figueiredo published a study with a title that says it plainly. They called it Demythologizing Arctodus. They looked closely at the way the animal was actually built, and what they found was not a sprinter. The long legs that everyone assumed meant speed were built for endurance, for covering enormous distances at a steady walk, not for the explosive burst it would take to run down a horse. Even the famous short face turned out to be partly an illusion. A deep snout with short nasal bones that only looks foreshortened. And a separate study in 2013 looked at the microscopic wear on the animal's teeth, the kind of damage that tells you what a creature actually ate, and found that Arctodus was not a specialized bone cracker either. Its tooth wear looked most like that of its living relatives, the flexible omnivores. So, what was it, if it was not the running killer of the documentaries? The best answer the science can give is somehow more unsettling than the myth. Arctodus was very likely a giant omnivore and a thief. It ate plants and it ate meat. And above all, it used the one weapon nothing else on the continent could match. Picture the Ice Age plains. A saber-toothed cat brings down a bison. A pack of dire wolves takes a horse. And then, out of the distance, comes something 12 feet tall that walks up to the kill and simply takes it. And there is not a single predator in North America that can do anything about it. That is what the size was for. Not the chase, the robbery. Arctodus did not have to be the fastest animal on the plains. It had to be the largest, and it was. And everything else on that landscape had to give way to it. There was, quite simply, nothing in Ice Age America that could take food from this bear. And this bear could take food from anything. Which brings us to the people. Because here is the fact that changes how you see all of this. For a long time, it was assumed this bear was long gone before humans ever reached America. It was not. New radiocarbon dating of the bones, published by the paleontologist Blaine Schubert, confirmed that some of the largest short-faced bears we have ever found were still alive right at the end of the Ice Age, around 11,000 years ago, at the exact moment the first confirmed people, the Clovis culture, were spreading across North America. The giant bear and the first Americans did not just share a continent. They shared time. They shared ground. And we can prove they shared specific places. At a site called Saltville in the mountains of southwestern Virginia, the bones of Arctodus have been found in the same layers of earth as Clovis stone tools, at an ancient salt lick that drew animals and people alike. On San Miguel Island, off the coast of California, short-faced bear bones lie in ground that also holds some of the earliest signs of human occupation on the west coast. The first human beings to walk into this country walked into a land where the largest animal was a bear that could look them in the eye on all fours and take a kill from a pack of dire wolves. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, in a way, a lot of these videos are not. Because it matters. There is no evidence that this bear hunted people. We have not found human bones in its den sites, and we have not found its bones butchered by human hands. The image of the giant bear stalking Ice Age hunters is dramatization, not fact, but you do not need it to be a manhunter to understand what it meant. Imagine being one of the first people ever to see this land, with stone-tipped spears and animal hide clothes, walking into a valley, and standing in that valley is a bear the size of a small truck. That has never in its life had a reason to be afraid of anything. You would have understood, in a way we have completely forgotten, exactly where you stood in the order of things. And it was not at the top. So, what happened to it? At the end of the Ice Age, around 11 to 12,000 years ago, the giant short-faced bear vanished. And it was one of the very last of the great Ice Age animals to go. And its disappearance is tied directly to what it was. Remember, this was an animal that lived on the carcasses of giants, the mammoths and the bison and the horses and the camels and the ground sloths, and on its ability to steal those carcasses from other great predators. It needed a world full of enormous prey animals, and it needed powerful hunters making kills for it to rob. And at the end of the Ice Age, that entire world came apart. The climate lurched, a cold snap called the Younger Dryas reshaping the land. And at the very same time, a new predator, human beings, spread across the continent, hunting the same giant animals the bear depended on. The mammoths went, the horses went, the great herds thinned and vanished. And when the giants fell, everything that lived on the giants fell with them. The saber-toothed cats, the dire wolves, the American lion, and the largest of them all, the 12-foot bear that had never had to fear anything, starved in a world that no longer had enough death in it to feed a thief that size. We do not know the exact share of blame between the changing climate and the arriving humans, and honest scientists still argue about it. What we know is that the giant short-faced bear could not outlast its own food, and the Ice Age took it the way it took nearly everything else that was too large for the world that came next. And that would be the end of the story. The largest bear in the history of this continent, gone 11,000 years, known only from bones in the ground under your feet. Except for one thing. Arctodus was not just a big bear. It belonged to a specific and ancient branch of the bear family, a group called the short-faced bears, the Tremarctine bears, a lineage found only in the Americas, and every single member of that ancient branch is extinct. The giant short-faced bear, its smaller cousin, all of them gone at the end of the Ice Age. All of them but one. High in the cloud forests of the Andes in South America, there lives a small, shy, dark bear with pale rings around its eyes. It weighs a couple of 100 pounds. It spends its life in the trees, eating fruit and plants, avoiding people, harming almost nothing. You may even know it because it is the bear that a famous children's character was based on. It is called the spectacled bear, and it is the last short-faced bear left alive on Earth, the last surviving branch of the same ancient lineage as the 12-foot monster that ruled Ice Age America. The blood of the largest bear this continent ever produced still runs quietly in the gentlest bear alive. The giant that could look a man in the eye on all fours, and the little bear hiding in the Andean mist are the same story, 11,000 years apart. One of them ruled a lost world and vanished with it. The other one is still here in the last high forest, carrying the whole of that history in its blood. And almost no one who sees it knows what it is looking at. Here is the thing we got wrong, and it is worth sitting with. We look for the most terrifying bear, and we point at the grizzly, at the polar bear, at the things with teeth that still share the woods with us. And they are dangerous. And they are real, and they deserve the respect. But they are not the biggest thing that ever walked this ground. For most of the last 2 million years, the largest predator in America was a bear that stood 12 feet tall and feared nothing. And the only reason we do not fear it is that we arrived at the very end, in time to watch it disappear. And then to forget it was ever there at all. It is still in the ground. Under the cornfields of Iowa and the salt licks of Virginia and the caves of California, the bones of the giant are waiting, and every so often a farmer or a gold miner or a child turns one up, and the size of it stops them cold. The country remembers what we forgot. It always does, watching the way this country has watched, since long before there was anyone here to be looked at, and long after the last of the giants that once did the looking.